What up, good people? It's your host, Earl of Pearl on the Ultimate 216 show, man. Back for another episode. I will be joined shortly by the homie Spencer German from 92.3 The Fan, also a Sports Illustrated. He was out in Berea today for, what is this, week two, day three of OTAs. Of course, Deshaun Watson threw in front of the media today, going to get his perspective on all of that, get his thoughts and things like that. Make sure you drop the hashtag U216. Make sure you are dropping where you're liking, where you're watching from. And if you got any questions or comments, man, we'll try to get to those by the end of the show. So just in the comments, big deal, no big deal. Drop a one or a two. Like Deshaun Watson throwing today at OTAs in front of the media. Like, is it a big deal to you? Is it something that should warrant as much attention as it's getting? Should people be making too much of it or too little of it, one way or another? For me, it's no big deal. I understand that Deshaun Watson is rehabbing from shoulder surgery. I understand the injury he suffered last year, and I understand people wanting to know how Deshaun Watson will look and will he be ready for the Cleveland Browns at the start of the season. But I caution everybody to understand, man, it's just May 30th. And I wouldn't make too much or too little of Deshaun Watson going out there throwing the football, whether if it was in front of the media or behind closed doors. I think it's hard to really get a true assessment of a football player when he got on shorts and shells. That's just my 1-2 on that. But if I can go through this and look at any positives, I think a lot has been said that this injury Deshaun Watson suffered is unique as it pertains to the position that he plays. This is typically an injury that you see go on with baseball players, typically pitchers. But here he is as a quarterback dealing with this injury, and there's not much data to go off of previous quarterbacks who's dealt with this and how they responded to said injury. And so I think the fact that he is out there throwing is a good sign. I think that it shows that his rehab is progressing in the right direction, and there hasn't been many setbacks to that. What else did I say about that as well? He threw a 30-yard pass and a 35-yard pass that we seen tweeted out on social media. That tells me that the arm strength and the velocity is there, and that it's only going to get better and stronger as we get further along in all the off-season activities, and then of course as we get to training camp, preseason, and so forth. And so for me, as long as there's no setbacks in anything, if the Cleveland Browns have a plan to allow this dude to throw every other day or however they plan on going about it, then for me, I'm all for it. And I truly believe that as long as Deshaun Watson is ready to go by week one of the NFL season, that I really won't harp too much as far as how he's handled, in the off-season programs. Because again, this thing is a marathon and not a sprint. And I think that as long as Deshaun Watson is healthy by week one and he's ready to go, then we shouldn't put way too much emphasis on that. I see my man Spencer German waiting in the queue. We're going to get his perspective. He was actually at OTAs today. If you go to his Twitter page or his X account, you will see some of the throws that Deshaun Watson made. But let me take a quick break, come back, and then we'll holler at my man one time. Don't forget, man, to check all of the Ultimate shows. My man G. Bush is coming at you tomorrow, Friday, with another hot Browns topic on the Ultimate Cleveland Browns show. So make sure you ring the bell. Make sure you like, subscribe, and get ready for that. Don't forget, that's G. Bush on the Ultimate Browns show coming at you every Monday and Friday on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show YouTube channel. And joining me right now, man, I got to add my man to the stage. My homeboy Spencer German from 92.3 The Fan, contributor for the Cleveland Browns on SI.com. Brother, how are you? First and foremost.
What's up, brother? Good to see you, man. I'm good. It's a nice day. It's beautiful out here in Berea, so can't complain about that. Hope you're doing well, man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great, man. So you know why you here. Deshaun Watson, threw the ball in front of the media today. From your perspective, from what you saw, how did Deshaun Watson look out there? All right, I think you there?
You got me, Earl?
Yeah, I got you now. So I was asking you, which from your perspective, how did you think Deshaun Watson looked when he threw in front of the media today? Can you hear me? All right, let's see. Spencer, can you hear me? All right, I think Spencer is having some connection issues. Let's see if my man can get that together. You there, brother? All right, he's logging out and logging back in, but definitely want to know how what his thoughts are. We had we having technical difficulties. My apologies. He is live from Berea right now, so he's trying to get himself into a spot to where he can come join us and give us some thought process behind that. But I'm interested to know what he think. For me, I think a lot of people are making way too much of this. I heard some chatter on the radio as I was coming in to do this show today. And I would just tell people this, man. It's May. Like it's just May. What more do you want? What is it that you're looking for from this said player in the month of May? Like I don't understand the infatuation with trying to, I guess, critique Deshaun Watson right now. I think that we're going to have plenty of time throughout the season to critique Deshaun Watson. And you got some people that's looking at this situation and are waiting for Deshaun Watson to prove them right so that they can take victory laps and say, I showed you. I told you so. This dude still has everything it takes to be a franchise quarterback. And if I'm being totally honest, you have some people that's waiting on the other shoe to drop. So where you lay on what side of the pendulum, I don't know, but I would tell you, like I've told you before, if you're somebody that's truly invested in seeing the Cleveland Browns be a successful football team, then you should be invested in Deshaun Watson's success. And it looks like we got Spencer back. Let me see if I can add my man. Hey, Spencer, you there?
I got you, Earl. You hear me now?
And apologies to the fans for those technical difficulties. So first things first, you're in Berea. You was out there. How did Deshaun Watson look throwing the football?
Yeah, so I honestly, what's kind of funny about it, the whole situation, I think, is that there was a lot of fanfare obviously made about him throwing the football for the first time. But I think overall, like the day was a little more anticlimactic than what people were hoping. He wasn't throwing during team. So he was throwing during sort of the individual stuff. And then also when it kind of got stripped down to just like him throwing routes to receivers. And there was a section, kind of the install portion of practice where it was like the offense, but they were going against air. And he threw against that group. He threw in that section of practice as well. So it was a still sort of limited capacity that we saw him kind of actively involved, and we'll see how that evolves in the third week of OTAs and then into veteran minicamp. But in terms of like how he looked throwing, I think it's less about like, I sort of put out tongue in cheek a tweet about, zip or no zip, you decide type thing. And it was kind of just being, sort of comical on social media because I like to do that, as you know. But I think from the perspective of like what was important about today, it wasn't, he wasn't like uncorking the ball. He wasn't trying to like really zip it in there to guys. It was more so, I think, about seeing how he was like in the flow of dropping back, throwing passes. And there was a couple that he did throw a little bit deeper. There was a 30-yard pass he connected with Elijah Moore that I thought was great. So there were some moments. I wouldn't say though that anybody should be anything that's out there on social media, my tweets included. Nobody should be, taking any one or two things away from a couple of the throws that he made. It was our first chance to see him. I thought, given where he's at in his process, it was a pretty good start.
So from based on what you've seen, Spencer, and like, is this how the Browns plan on handling Deshaun Watson throughout this entire phase, as far as the OTAs, the 3 weeks of OTAs, you know, every other days with the reps? It seemed like it was more individual drills. than team drills. Do you think they stay the course with this plan that they have?
Yeah, right now he's been throwing every other day. So he threw on Tuesday. He was off yesterday. Threw for us today for the open session of practice. I'm assuming that same plan sort of applies to the third and final week of OTAs next week, where he'll throw every other day, and then we'll see what that looks like come veteran minicamp. It sounds like the plan was kind of to do a little bit more once he got to that phase of the offseason program, but I would sort of expect at this point that until we get to training camp, we're not really going to see like the full Deshaun Watson experience. We're not going to see him dropping back against defenses, reading, making throws, really, revving back and trying to throw the ball as hard as he can. And that's okay. I don't think he has to be at that point. It's going to kind of take time. He has always said this is going to be a process. His doctors have been more conservative with it. I think the Browns are being more conservative with it, and that's probably the right way to handle it because let's face it, Earl, like we know how much money they got invested in this guy. We know they invested a lot of draft capital in this guy. Like they need him to pan out. They need him to stay healthy, and so they're not going to rush him into anything. But the plan right now, based on how it's kind of lined up and mapped out, is that he's back in time for week 1, and I expect at this point that he's still on that trajectory.
All right, so I'm gonna read this quote here from Ken Dorsey. We can look at this together, but he pretty much alluded to that. Today was just another milestone in the entire rehabilitation process for Deshaun Watson. This is what Ken Dorsey, Cleveland Browns' new offensive coordinator, had to say. He said Deshaun Watson is progressing through rehab, and today he made a vertical throw down the sideline that Dorsey hadn't seen from him yet. So there are milestones he's hitting despite being limited. So it sounds like that's how pretty much you're assessing it, that this is just another milestone, another check, box being checked off and this entire process. Spence, man, do you think people are like just making too much of Deshaun Watson and trying to assess how he's looking right now in May when we still haven't got to training camp and we know that the bottom line is to see how he looks come the regular season?
Yeah, it's a good question. And yeah, I think that throw that he alluded to might have been the throw that I put out on a video at my Twitter handle at @SpenceCito_ was to Elijah Moore. It was like a 30-yard pass, which I thought was probably his best throw of the day. And yeah, like I think it's okay to treat this as a milestone and say, listen, it's his first time throwing in front of the media. Maybe doing some things, as Dorsey alluded to, that he hadn't done to this point, and that's obviously good news. But I do think, to your question, or like people are definitely trying to take many bits and pieces of things we're seeing, whether it's the Browns social media team putting it out there or whatever, and they're like dissecting it. It kind of feels very. You remember when Odell was here, obviously, Earl,
Yeah.
and like every day there was a new video of him making a one-handed catch of practice, and we were all like, "Oh man, like this is so cool! Oh, like look at him do these amazing things!" And everyone was trying to analyze every single thing that he was doing. And I think the same sort of logic applies, right? Like, yeah, that's really cool for a social media video of practice, but the stuff that they're doing right now for Deshaun, that's like really, a game scenario or something that really applies to in the moment, him making that big throw. I don't think that's there quite yet. And that's fine. Like that's where they're at in the process. It's a stripped down version of practice right now. They'll get there. But I think it is a lot of that kind of like social media hype and that type of stuff that we're dealing with here. And I do sort of warn people to maybe dial that back just a little bit in terms of, over analyzing one way or another, the good throws from Deshaun or the bad throws from Deshaun.
So Ken Dorsey alluded to, actually finally getting to be able to get in front of these guys and, actually get the reps in with this install of this new offense. And he said, this is not my offense. This is not Kevin Stefanski's offense. It's our offense. And it seems like that he has his hands all over this install. It seems like that his voice is very loud in the room. Can you speak to, some of the things that you saw today, just observing, OTAs that's a little different schematically for the Cleveland Browns than we might have saw last year? Like something that stood out to you?
I think the biggest thing so far, and again, keeping in mind that it's a stripped down version of things, we're not getting the full package, and part of the reason that's evident is like they're letting us shoot video at practice, which isn't really. That's not something that's going on during the season when they're actually practicing things schematically for another opponent. So I think that kind of tells you like they're not doing in-depth stuff right now. But one of the biggest things that I think is noticeable is just how much stuff they're running out of shotgun. They did that kind of mixed last year, but in the vein of trying to build an offense that is catered to Deshaun, it's pretty evident that Ken Dorsey's come in and that is his philosophy. Like, hey, we're going to do a lot more out of shotgun. There were some plays where like Deshaun would start under center and then back up and be more in the shotgun. But I think that's probably the biggest thing that stands out to this point. I also did think last week at OTAs, one thing that I noticed that I thought was kind of interesting, and it could have just been because we know there's guys that aren't here right now. Amari Cooper's not here right now. Elijah Moore wasn't here last week. Now he is here this week. But I noticed that Jerry Jeudy was kind of lining up all over the field last week, which I thought was interesting. He was outside, he was inside. There was a couple of times where he lined up in the backfield and then kind of motioned out of it or actually ran out of the backfield. So I thought that was all kind of interesting. I don't know if that's the exact role they have planned for him, but I thought it was interesting because last year we know they tried to build this Elijah Moore sort of, Swiss Army knife package. It didn't really work so well. And I wonder if they're maybe envisioning Jerry Jeudy doing some of that stuff this year. So those are a few of the nuances and just different wrinkles that I've seen to this point. And again, as time goes on, I think we'll continue to see more and more with this evolution of what this new look offense looks like with both Dorsey and Stefanski's kind of schemes and their heads kind of being put together to make it work.
What's your gut feeling on who's the play caller? For me, I think it's going to be Ken Dorsey. What's your gut feeling?
My gut tells me that it's still going to be Kevin Stefanski. I could be totally wrong on that. I think as time goes on, here's what I'll say. I think the longer and longer we go without Stefanski naming a play caller, it's more likely that it becomes Ken Dorsey, because I think as he gets his hand on more things and he's able to kind of, get guys on the same page in terms of what he wants to do, I think that all kind of bears itself out with, okay, now that he has a good grip on everything, he knows the personnel, everyone's kind of on the same page. Now he gets the responsibility of it. So I do think that there's some truth maybe to that. But I do also think that Stefanski was brought in because he's an offensive mind and this is what he's supposed to do best. So if that's the case, it just feels like it should be Stefanski's job still. I know that was something Andrew Berry talked about at length when they hired Ken Dorsey at the end of the season, was just how they really value Stefanski's offensive mind and the perspective that he brings to things. I'd have a hard time believing that that's the internal belief inside the organization, and then they don't let Stefanski kind of choose that. So I do think it is his choice, and I think ultimately he'll keep it because he seems like he loves doing it. But I do think the closer and closer we get to week one, without a play caller, it probably means it's more likely going to be Ken Dorsey.
So when the team drills was going on, I can only assume Jameis Winston was QB1 for the team drills. Who was getting the plays in, to him during those? Was it Stefanski or was it Dorsey?
Yeah, so that was largely Dorsey. He kind of stands back there with he has a play sheet, and he's often standing right next to Deshaun. When he wasn't involved in the team stuff, they were kind of talking, and the quarterbacks would come over and talk to him. So it's a lot of Dorsey sort of communicating that stuff, and that's a good point to make. He is doing it a lot of practice. I can't necessarily speak to because I wasn't here for this phase of things last year at this time to know if that was an Alex Van Pelt duty as well when he was the offense coordinator. So I do want to put that context out there. And I also do think Stefanski being the head coach, he's overseeing a lot of different things from that lens versus just the play caller lens. But it is an interesting note. It's a good question because it's an interesting thing to note right now that it is a lot of Dorsey kind of communicating that stuff in, and then they kind of run the play. So what that means right now, I guess, remains to be seen, but that's a fair question for you to ask for sure.
Let's go back to the wide receivers real quick. I've seen some highlights of Cedric Tillman out there. I think I seen David Bell might make a nice little move out there. I think we assume that wide receivers 1 through 3 are Amari, Jerry Jeudy, and Elijah Moore. But for the guys that's looking to grab, that 4th, 5th, 6th, and possibly 7th wide receiver spot to you, and I know we got a small sample size and we can only go off of what we've seen today, understanding that it's in a minor, it's in a micro, right? Who stood out from that group? The David Bells, the Thrashes, the Tillmans, the Woods. Who seems to be kind of separating themselves now, even though it's early?
Yeah, and again, you bring up it's early. That's definitely the case. Like it's hard to draw a lot of conclusions right now on a lot of these things. But I do think that the organization values Cedric Tillman a lot. I think they have sort of high hopes for him in year two. Plus, we know Barry loves they don't generally cut ties with their own draft picks that quickly. So I would imagine that he's probably a guy that I don't want to say safe, but I think like they have a lot invested in him and they see a lot of potential in him that I think he's kind of stood out to this point and just the reps he's getting. He seems to be doing some good things. I noticed today David Bell was kind of moving around a lot in the formations. I kind of picked up on that a little bit, going in motion, doing some things out of the slot. And I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, this room has a lot of depth to it in terms of guys that are going to be competing for jobs. Obviously, Jamari Thrash is a new face, a draft pick from this year. He probably goes into camp because he's such a late round pick, more on like a bubble of like he's not guaranteed a spot, but he could earn it. And I also think another way he could earn a spot is by being a kick returner. And that's another element to the wide receiver room too, Earl, because like Bubba Ventrone's talked a lot about how this play is going to change not only their outlook on special teams, but just across the NFL, how it's going to change things. And I do think they're going to try a lot of different bodies and a lot of different players out as kick returners. I think Naheem Hines, when he's back on the field, probably has like a maybe as a leader in the clubhouse because you brought him in for that reason. But I Thrash has been back there fielding kicks. There's been several others back there fielding kicks as well from the wide receiver room. So yeah, that's going to be an opportunity for maybe a guy to potentially be a seventh wide receiver on the roster because he has a role in special teams and they think he has a chance to contribute offensively. I'm as fascinated as you, and I think a lot of fans, to see how that group kind of shakes out. And, largely during training camp when we talk about roster bubbles and all that, but throughout the rest of the spring as well.
Speaking of special teams, I didn't really get a chance to hear what Bubba Ventrone had to say when he spoke to the media. Just curious, did you see anything, as far as like the alignment with the kickoffs and things like that out there today with special teams? Is there anything taking place with special teams that kind of caught your eye?
So, to be honest, and I apologize for this noise behind me, I don't think we've seen them do a lot with the kickoff just yet. It's been a lot of punt and guys back there fielding punts, but we haven't seen quite as much with like the kickoff and kick return stuff from our perspective yet. Now that might change when we get into veteran minicamp. We might see a little bit more, but we haven't seen a ton of what they're going to do just yet. But what's interesting about the play, Earl, is that and Bubba Ventrone's talked about this a little bit. Like it almost becomes like an extension of like an offensive play in some ways, because you now almost have like this line of scrimmage, right? Like there's this 5-yard space in between where the kick return lines or the kick team lines up. The return team can kind of set up their blockers, and they're going to be able to like move back and then formulate, like they can double team guys, they can kick guys out, they can kind of create these lanes for players to run through. So yeah, I'm interested to see that play sort of flushed out more in front of us during training camp and maybe veteran minicamp in 2 weeks to kind of see what things they might have kind of planned. I'm assuming they won't let us shoot any of that because nobody. The other thing with this play right now, where it was like everyone's so fresh, and Bubba even talked about it. Like he was asked today about if there's any other guys around the league that he kind of confides in and like bounces ideas off of, and he said, yeah, there's some guys I trust, and I talk to them a lot more leading up to now. But I think all of us have now gotten into OTAs, and we're kind of keeping things a little closer to the vest now. So it's like giving up trade secrets if you tell people what you want to do. Like everyone wants to kind of see, they might have their own perspective on how to run this play and see what works come the regular season. And it's going to kind of be like this mad dash to see who has maybe the best way of running it or the best idea to run it. And then it's going to almost be like a copycat thing like this league tends to be. So I think a lot of that's kind of being sort of kept close to the vest. But Bubba Ventrone also did mention that he thinks while they'll try to not disclose everything during preseason, that we might actually see more than we bargained for with that play, because they do have to test some things out to kind of get a sense of what it could look like. They don't want to just go in week one and be like, okay, here's our real like test run of this. They want to see some things in action. So it'll be interesting to see, I think, as we get into the preseason and training camp, how different coaches and different perspectives on that play are going to kind of play out. But right now, we haven't seen a ton of it just yet.
That's my homeboy Spencer German, Spencito. Real quick, last week, man, I got a text message when two of my guys get a chance to work together, man. I think that's pretty dope. I got a chance to see that episode. You and Cecil absolutely killed that podcast.
I've been meaning to text you about that. I was going to text him and say, yo, I finally got a chance to like talk to Cecil one-on-one. Really cool dude. I knew you guys were close. And I'm already getting his number so I can have him on other times, because he's awesome, man. That was a lot of fun.
So real quick, man, before you get out of here, man, you tell the fans that's watching where they can find you at, where they can get your content, all your work. Just let them know everywhere you at out here in these streets.
Yeah, for sure. So you see my Twitter handle on there, @Spencito with an underscore at the end. You can follow me there. As Earl mentioned, I'm over at 92 The Fan quite a bit. I'll be in my normal Sunday time slot, 10 to 2 on Sunday. Earl, you've been holding it down for me the last couple weeks, which I appreciate, but I'll be back this weekend, so looking forward to that. And then a lot of my written work and some of the video content I do, you can find over at si.com/NFL/Browns. I'll have a bunch of stuff up there today, kind of reacting to the Deshaun throwing and all that good stuff. So appreciate you having me on as always, Earl. I apologize for the early technical difficulties, and if there's any noise in the background, I was trying to make it work the best I could. But
hey, man, we made it work, brother. I appreciate you taking time out your busy schedule, and I hit you up a little later. I actually got something I need to talk to you about.
Okay,
man. But be great, and I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. I appreciate you, brother.
All right, brother. Shout out to my homie, man, Spencer German, man, from 92.3 The Fan, who took time out to join me today. So there you have it. Gave us some insight from somebody that was actually there today at OTAs. We only got like 6 minutes left. I do want to run through your questions. I know on the rundown it says a trade for the Cavs that would work, but you know what? I really don't want to talk about that, if I'm being totally honest with you. But tonight, Minnesota, Dallas, game 5, right? Let me get my stuff up, man, so we can have this conversation real quick, because I got a question to ask y'all. So game 5 tonight is in Minnesota, 8:30 on TNT. It looks like right now Minnesota is 4.5-point favorites. The next win for Dallas closes out this series. Kyrie Irving, our old homie, our buddy, our dog, you know what I'm saying? Somebody that hit the biggest shot in Cleveland Cavaliers history. Do you want to see Kyrie Irving win another championship? Like, are you somebody that's rooting for the Dallas Mavericks to beat the Boston Celtics, and you kind of got like some sentimental attachments to Kyrie Irving because of him being here with us? You wouldn't mind seeing him win another title. If you're watching right now, if you're in the comments, man, drop a 1 if you're here to see Kyrie win another championship. Drop a 2 if you like, hell no, I'm not on that at all. Me personally, I ain't never stopped being a Kyrie Irving fan. And to be totally honest with you, I was kind of pissed off at Kobe Altman that he traded him. I felt like that we got pennies on a dollar in return for him, and that Kobe should have did a little bit more, or he should have honestly listened to LeBron when LeBron said, don't trade him, just get him to training camp. Let me talk to him, man. Me personally, I miss Kyrie Irving. Like, I don't know about you all, but it's hard to not watch that dude play and be like, damn, I wish he was still a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Not only that, man, he seems to be maturing as a man and as a basketball player. And it's so funny to see where Kyrie is now in his professional career, because he's doing everything essentially that LeBron James thought he was capable of doing much younger in his career. He was much more capable of playing off ball, and we see him playing off ball a lot now. He was much more capable of being a facilitator. We see him become more of a facilitator now. And we all know that when Kyrie actually puts his mind to it, he can play some solid ass perimeter defense. If you go back to the 2016 NBA Finals, I can't remember the last time I seen a guard pretty much lock up Steph Curry, if you can lock up Steph Curry, the way that Kyrie Irving did. I think that Kyrie Irving is a leader, and I think that him actually putting that leadership on display right now for the Dallas Mavericks will make them Western Conference champions and eventually NBA champions. When you look at this, he's the one with the experience. He's the one that knows how to go out here and do what it takes to become an NBA champion. And 14-0 in closeout games in his career, the best record in NBA history. That's never been nothing to sneeze at. So I'm somebody that's rooting for Kyrie Irving. I'm not a hater, man. I miss Kyrie. I want to see Kyrie go get a dub and go win a ring. So drop what y'all think in the comments, man. I'll definitely get back to those a little later. Real quick, man, I want to read some of these comments before we get out of here. As always, man, I appreciate y'all pulling up to the Ultimate 216 show. I try to give y'all sports life culture and an authentic opinion of what I really feel. I know most of the time I ain't backing what I feel behind stats or nothing like that, but that's my style. That's my stilo. Anthony PA, he says NBC just ranked Baker as the 15th best quarterback going into 2024. Watson was ranked 24th. Thoughts on Baker being so much higher than Deshaun Watson? I think that Baker being so much higher than Deshaun Watson is BS. I do understand Baker had a damn good season last year, but I also understand that we're in the off season, and a lot of these publications, man, they are going to write things that's triggering. And to Deshaun Watson go out here and prove that he's still a player that we traded for, we're going to continue to deal with stuff like that. It is what it is, but it's nothing that we can really do about that. Let's see here. Being Burnt says, I think it will be Stefanski still when they're hired the running back and tight end coaches before the offensive coordinator. And he's alluding to the play calling. He also says it will be interesting to see how the new kickoff rule works in the NFL. That's one of the things I'm really, really looking forward to. I think special teams is going to be really, really fun this year. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that's implemented. My man, Freddie B. Shout out to Freddie B, man. No matter if it's here, behind the glass, Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, the flagship, 92.3 The Fan. This man is always pulling up and supporting me. I can't tell you how much that means to me, man. Thank you so much. Let's see here. Says Sealand Brown said would like to see Kyrie win another championship, but with Cleveland. I think we need to get the game back together, if you ask me. Get Kyrie home, get LeBron home, get J.R. Smith off the golf course, and get Amon Shumpert off the shot. Go get our dudes back, man, and so we can do what we got to do to go win another championship, man. That's it. It's been another episode of the Ultimate 216 show as we bring y'all sports life culture, man. Again, I thank you all for pulling up, supporting me, man, for watching the show. Remember, man, I love you. Until next time, be great, spread love. Remember, man, being great come with a price. Spread love is priceless. I'm out of here.